All right, welcome to another edition of the Southeastern Sports Network podcast. Happy to have you with us here for another week talking Lion Athletics. And it's our special guest segment this week. It's brought to you as always by Gateway Ford in Ponchatoula. And our special guest this week is Lion Hall of Fame member, Mr. Ken Kenelly. Ken, thank you so much for spending some time with us today and being with us here tonight. It means a lot that you're willing to sit in with us and just kind of talk about, Lion Athletics, Lion football. It's something that's really near and dear to you and your family's heart. And it really means a lot that you spent some time with us tonight.
It's great to be with you guys. Thanks.
So, just talk about, looking back over time and where, when you first got on campus as a player, where this, I know there was the gap of football, but where this athletic department has come since you were first a student at Southeastern many, many years ago.
Well, when I first got there, our dressing room was still the old dressing room. Underneath the stadium, where the ticket office is now. And it was real small, real cramped, real crowded. And they were in the process of building the new athletic building, which was a big deal, huge thing right there. But I can remember dressing in that first little locker room, and it was room for maybe about 40 people in there, and I want to say we had about 100 in there. So it was we were very close back in those days. And but then that next summer, I remember Coach Bob Ricketts was in charge that we put new seats. The seats in the stadium, the ones that are there now, we got a job with the contractor. He hired a couple of us. Let's see, Josh Wells was on the crew, and Bob Ricketts was our foreman. We put all those seats in that next summer in 1971, I think it was.
Wow.
We spent all summer putting those seats in. So the seats y'all sit in, we put those in there.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Sure did. We sure did. Yeah.
Probably couldn't get that done today with players, I'm sure, but it's a little different times.
Busting those old wooden seats from out of there. I can remember that.
Yeah.
So, but they've held up pretty good, haven't they?
Yeah, they sure have.
Yeah,
they still look really good. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it just adds to the look. I've been to every Southland school, watch games in them. Obviously, I've been to a lot of different FCS schools around the country. And I know you have too. You traveled. I know you went this past weekend to Commerce, but there's no place better in FCS football to watch a game than Strawberry Stadium, just with the vantage points and the setting. And I mean, we have one of the best stadiums around. It's not the biggest, but I think it's one of the most special places. Where there's not a bad seat in the house, and it really grasps what college football is all about when you're in there in that place, and it's got a good atmosphere.
That's true, Robert. Yeah, I hear that over and over again. I think Southeastern is one of the most beautiful campuses in the state of Louisiana. Also, I think Northwestern is also a beautiful campus, but I think ours is just as beautiful. And the stadium, there's a lot of stories behind that old stadium that I've heard in the past. We can talk about that if you want to. But Mr. Gene Hallam, who was my sister's godfather back in the day, he was the auditor when they built the stadium, and he told some very interesting stories about how some state trucks would pull up to the front of the stadium and load up some building materials, and they weren't supposed to talk about it. So,
well, I mean,
the governor went to jail over that back in the day. So,
yeah, it's all in the past now, right?
That's a good
laugh. It's still there and holding up great, and it's still, like I said, one of the most beautiful stadiums in FCS football, which to me is real college football. I can't think of another stadium I've been to that's more beautiful than Strawberry Stadium.
You've watched this program come back, and you were about as big as a part of bringing it back as anybody. I know you had a lot of brethren, former players who were part of that group, but you were a big part of it. There were some bumps in the road initially, but when you watched it come back and you saw that first game and the kickoff, that had to be really special. And we've won 3, but when you watched that first conference championship in 2013, how special was that for you and your former players to see, wow, all the work we put in, we're not just playing, we're competing for championships and we're winning championships. That had to be one of the more special moments when you worked hard to get that program back over time.
Oh, Robert, that was a dream come true. Well, I remember the first game had the lightning storm. You remember that? It was, oh my God, more lightning I've ever seen in my life, popping all around the stadium. And I think we suspended the game for a while then, right?
Yep, that's right.
You remember that?
Yeah, right out in the first quarter.
Yeah,
First drive.
That was was just so exciting that I just couldn't stand it, and everybody was there, and it was packed, and then all the lightning came. And then the next moment I want to say that I felt that much excitement was our first playoff game. When I saw the team run onto the field that first time for a FCS playoff game, it brought tears to my eyes. I said, we're back, So,
yeah.
Pretty great.
And the Lions have competed against some of the blue bloods of FCS football here recently, going to Montana, going to JMU. You've had South Dakota State come to Strawberry Stadium before, and you're going to have them come next year. Southeastern has taken on I know this hasn't been the best year for the Lions, but Southeastern has held its own when you talk about national FCS football and the knowledge people have. That's got to be something that you're proud of as well, not just winning, but also the acknowledgement of so many people around the country of this being a really strong program in FCS.
It's been a progression. When we first got started back with Hal, and he gave us a name recognition. I can remember our first big win was when we went to McNeese. I think they were ranked 5th in the nation at the time, and we blew their doors off 50-something to whatever. I remember we were the last ones in the stadium. So, that was huge. And each coach now has kind of stepped up the game. And I think one thing that Coach Selfo, what Frank said when he got here and he went to that first playoff game, he said, that's exactly the kind of team I want to have.
Right.
We got back from Montana, was it? And that's where I want to get. And he said, we've been getting there. We took a step back this year, but I think Frank knows exactly what we have to do to get back on top and compete with the South Dakota States and the North Dakota States and the Montanas, and we'll be back at that level soon. I have
no doubt.
Yeah.
Mark, go ahead.
Well, Ken, I appreciate you joining us. This is a real pleasure for me to have you on because your name is synonymous with Southeastern. You and your family, obviously, your father, Pat Kenelly, his name's on the baseball stadium, longtime head coach, 6-time conference champion as a head baseball coach, was a head football coach here, all Louisiana player here, Hall of Famer as well. And you talked about Strawberry Stadium. He's pretty much seen the birth of Strawberry Stadium all the way through. I know your whole family's been here. And so it just means a lot for us to have you on tonight. And, really want to talk about a lot of things, but, touch a little bit on your father, what he meant to Southeastern, what he's in your family and your time here, and just kind of expand on that if you would.
Okay. Well, Dad, he grew up in Bogalusa. His father worked at the lumber mill, paper mill in Bogalusa, of course, didn't have an education. One thing he insisted on was his children were going to get an education, and Southeastern being the closest school, that's where they went, right? I can remember he told me the story. I think he enrolled in 1939, I believe, right before World War II started. And he told me the story one day that they were on campus on the tennis courts right by the old men's gym when they announced the attack on Pearl Harbor. He said everybody, was a bunch of athletes, were taking a tennis class there. He said they immediately walked off the courts and went and signed up right there.
Wow.
Said never went back to class. And then got back 4 years later in 46. And of course, they had that great super team. Of course, they were all like 25, 26 years old at that time. And just blew the doors off everybody in that first year back with Al Ramboli, Turk Campion, a couple of them. And the story I understand is that when George Hallis heard about these big guys down in Hammond, Louisiana, he got on the Illinois Central and took the train down to Hammond and got off and signed my dad to a contract with the Bears.
Wow.
Gave him $800 to sign with the Bears. The problem was, now he was older. He was 25, 26 years old, and he was engaged to be married to my mother in December. At the same time, Stan Galloway was the head coach at Bogalusa High School and offered him a job coaching at Bogalusa and teaching there. Turns out that he was going to make just about as much at Bogalusa High School that he would have made at playing for the Bears. So he took the $800. He bought an Indian motorcycle, and that's what he dated my mother on. And anyway, they got married, and few years later, I came along. So that's his story. And then he was at Southeastern ever since, of course, and that was his life. And back in the day, I mean, when you were with a university, that was your school, and you were loyal to that school, and that's the way it used to be. I mean, you didn't get moved around a lot back. You didn't look to get moved around back then. The coaches at their schools stayed at their schools, and they were loyal to the schools, and the schools were loyal to them. A little bit different now. So, anyway.
Well, that leads us into what we're talking about this week. River Bell Classic, obviously, Nicholls State coming up on Thursday night. And, this is a rivalry that goes back to 1972, and I know you played 70 to 73, and you played in those first two River Bell Classics. Just talk about this rivalry, what it means to you, how it got started, and kind of where you see things today.
Well, I can remember, I think 72 was our first year to play Nicholls.
I think so, yeah.
Just started the Nicholls program. The coach was Coach Clements, a good coach, and they had put together a good first squad, I remember, and had some success. But I don't think we had much problem with them that first year, 31-0, I believe. I can remember in that first game, my old roommate Gino Marino had a big game. I think he had a couple of touchdowns and 100+ yards rushing. Another one of my roommates, Gina Stopper, was our quarterback, had a big game. Bobby Hill, my old Hammond High teammate, had a big game in that first game. And I think we beat him pretty easily that first year. Second year, 73, it was a little tougher. I think it was like a 10-0 game, pretty defensive struggle, but you could see Nicholls was getting better in a hurry down there. And so it's and I think I've seen every Southeastern Nicholls game ever since. I don't think I've missed one.
Now, I think after the first couple, I know it moved to the Superdome for like a couple of years. Talk about that, if you would. I think was it 2 years they played in the Dome? Is that right?
Right. Yeah, they had two years in the Dome. That was interesting. That was some fun going down to the Dome, going to New Orleans, playing the game, going out to eat restaurants. Think I like it better playing in the home stadiums now. Playing on a Thursday night, okay, I could go with that. I think I'd rather have a good Saturday game where we could tailgate a little bit more. But it's an advantage to Nicholls this year. They'll get a couple of extra days to get ready for the playoffs, just like it was an advantage for us last year, I think, and the year before. So there's pluses and minuses to playing it on a Thursday. But I saw Nicholls play Houston Christian the other night. I was watching them coming back from Dallas, and I was really impressed with their running game. I thought Nicholls had a good, strong running game and a good defense. So I look for another really good River Bell Classic Thursday night. Should be a good one.
When you talk about, Coach Selfo, I mean, I know you got to know him really well. Just talk about, I know you think highly of him and are so happy he's here. Just talk about your relationship with Coach Selfo and what you've seen on how he's, gotten this program to a different level over the last few years.
I know Coach has a vision for our program. He knows he sees where he wants to go, where he wants us to go. He knows exactly what that's supposed to look like. So I can see him working every day to get us there. I know he knows the kind of talent, kind of players we need to bring in. I know he's really focused on having a strong schedule that'll get us ready for the postseason. I saw our schedule for next year. What we open up after Tulane and Southern Miss. We have Eastern Washington and South Dakota State defending national champions coming into Hammond. That's right. That's all because of Coach Selfo. We played Eastern Washington. He told me because he met the Eastern Washington coach at when Cole Kelly was going for the Walter Payton, and he met their coach. He said, "Why don't we play each other?" I said, "Yeah, let's set it up." So that's where he's trying to get us, and I think he's doing a great job. We're going to be on the national scene more and more. We're heading in that direction. We've been there, and we'll be back. And looking forward to the future.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about these former players. You talk a little bit about how you're growing that, and you're trying to welcome in these younger players that played since the program came back into that, that alumni group. Just talk about how that's going for you guys and how y'all want to build that in the future.
Oh, well, okay. Like I said, back when football was dropped, the former players stuck together. we were continuing to meet. We were getting together. Just wasn't connected with Southeastern. It was just with us being friends from the good old days. Then when Sally Clausen announced, "Hey, we're going to bring football back," and here's the fundraiser we're going to do. We met with her, and I can remember T.C. Calmes, Coach Galloway, my dad. They were all right there behind her, and that's when actually the former players really got back involved again. I remember our big push for the former players was we were here in Baton Rouge for our spring crawfish ball here, and we had a lot of former players there, and it had just been announced. Sally had just announced we were bringing football back, and one of the former players said, "Hey, why don't the former players get together and host a golf tournament and raise some money to put that in the kitty?" And that was Mike Lemon, of all people, and said, "Hey, let's do that." Well, just so happened Gino Marino and I were standing there, and he said, "Yeah, let's do it." Well, we didn't see Mike again until we played the tournament, but Gino and I got it. And now we've had it 20 years now.
Wow.
I remember at the beginning, our goal was to raise $50,000 for the campaign to bring football back. And we were able to do that in the first 4 years. So,
wow.
So we were able to do that, and it's still going on. And
over at Greystone, is that correct still?
Been having a Greystone every year. They've been wonderful hosts for us over there, and it's a great facility, and they welcome us every year. So it's been very successful, and it's going to continue to be. And anyway, so that's what we've done as former players.
The team, I think, when you look back at your time playing and time coaching, and just to see that, I mean, there's been, since the program's come back now, and Coach Roberts got here and brought in guys like Brian Bennett, Xavier Roberson, and you've had Cole Kelly, you've had so many other players, Austin Mitchell, who have made huge impacts here. Just talk about how cool it was to see some of these guys that have come in the Hall of Fame now that played since the program's return. Like Brian's got in. Obviously this past year Xavier got in, Isaiah got in. I mean, that's just, in your mind, I feel like that has to be that continued tradition of seeing excellence, getting in the Hall of Fame, joining you as a member of the Hall of Fame at Southeastern.
And again, it means so much more, I think, because we had that 18-year gap where we didn't have that to look forward to. So I think today, seeing those guys up there on the podium getting inducted just makes it seem, it just means even more when we see those guys stepping up there and talking about, hey, they're great times they had at Southeastern, the friendships that they made that they continue to have after they're finished playing. When you hear them stand up there on the stage and talking about that means a lot to all the old guys to see, hey, that's back again, and that's what it's all about. So yeah, today, I mean, some of my best friends are the guys I played with years and years and years ago, back in the 70s. So
yeah, Mark, go ahead. Anything else for Ken?
Yeah, you talked about obviously, the past and obviously the present, and we had that gap. And I guess what I'm going to ask is, this program has taken a next step, still has steps to take. And in your opinion, what has to happen really to continue to close that gap, that 18-year gap, to build on the future moving forward? What has to take place for this program to grow, in your opinion?
Well, and I've heard Coach Selfo say this too. The next step is an improvement in our facilities. I know our new athletic training room complex is on the drawing board. We need to see that push forward. We need to see that happen. We need to, when a prospect walks onto the campus, he needs to see something that's pretty impressive that to say, hey, I think I want to be a part of this. Something that catches attention right off the bat. And then once he sees the dedication of the coaches and the players and what a great place Hammond, America is to come and live and play ball and go to school, it'll roll from there. So I think, to answer your question, Mark, I think the first thing we need to do is get that new athletic building up and get that done, and then we'll go from there.
And to your talk about baseball real quick. What do you think your dad would think about where this baseball program is? I mean, the attendance, the atmosphere, where it's gotten to over the years. I mean, he had to be extremely proud of how this baseball program has become, football has gotten there, but I think baseball has gotten to a little bit different level nationally over the last 10, 15 years.
Right. I think that was his dream. I know that's where he wanted to get to. I know when he took over, he told me that the outfield fence, there wasn't a fence. It was just a railing out there. So, the ball rolled through the fence, and it was a ground rule double or a home run. It was up to the umpire to call that. But just to look out there and see how the facilities have grown, the support the program's getting year after year after year, he'd be tickled to death. And like I said earlier, with our old football teammates, his players were close to him till the day he died. He was still very close to all of his old players, and it was just same kind of spirit, same kind of atmosphere on the baseball program. So that's continued to be, but now it's just, I think the facilities there would blow him away. And now with the new baseball field house, that's tremendous. Good stuff we're doing there. It's going to keep growing and getting better. So
yeah, absolutely. Mark, go ahead.
Now, you coach volleyball, correct? Didn't
you?
You did. I wanted to ask you kind of a curveball question. The Southeastern volleyball team really playing well. Your thoughts on that? Being an old volleyball coach.
Back then, every coach had to coach a second sport.
Right.
That's not the way it is today. Back then, we all had to coach. Actually, I had two sports. I coached the golf team too. So,
Robbie, there you go.
So they said, Kim, since you're the only coach who knows how to play golf, you're the golf coach. I said, great. And walked in there and met Coach Luke Mahler the day he was leaving. And I said, Coach, we need to talk about this. I've never been a golf coach. And he handed me a file folder and he said, here you go. Good luck. And Coach Mahler walked out the door. But I didn't have that big of a head start with the volleyball team. So went to the first practice, and so they said, well, I said, what do we have for equipment? And they rolled out a basket with a couple of volleyballs and a net. I said, do we have uniforms? They said, yeah, you have last year's girls basketball uniforms.
Oh, wow.
So we pulled it together, and it was we had a lot of fun. It was a different sport for me to coach. I was used to getting on the guys. I was a defensive end linebacker coach in football, and I just felt like I couldn't treat the girls the same way that I treat those defensive ends and linebackers.
But look what you started. So now they're running off 20 wins in a row and going to NCAA tournaments. So I just want to touch on that real quickly.
I'm really proud of the man. They're so impressive. That's an amazing job that the girls have done. Just outstanding.
Well, Ken, we're wrapping up. Just your final thoughts with us. Anything you want to share or talk about that we didn't hit? That just it's a place that you've given so much to in your life and your family has and means so much to you.
Well, all right. I'll finish up just with one thing that has continued with our family tradition at Southeastern. Of course, my uncles went to Southeastern. My Uncle John was alumnus of the year. My Uncle Orville went there. My aunts went there. But just recently, we had a soccer player that was my Uncle Orville's daughter, Claire Houston,
awesome.
Has just graduated and had an outstanding 5-year career at Southeastern during the COVID. And so we've added another Kenelly name to the alumni rolls here, and she had an outstanding career on the soccer team. So just proud of cousin Claire and what she's done from Colorado, by the way. She did a great job.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, Ken, we really appreciate it. It means a lot you came on with us tonight. Some great stories. I think fans will really enjoy listening to some of these moments and look forward to the Riverville Classic, which will be played on Thursday at Strawberry Stadium. And the Lions trying to finish off with 4 straight wins and keep the Riverbell here in Hammond. We appreciate you coming on tonight, Ken, a lot. Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
And we'd love to do some more with former players, too. So we'll look for that in the future.
That's
absolutely.
Great. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
That's Ken Kenelly, part of our interview segment this week, brought to you by Gateway Ford and Punch Tool. We'll take a break and come back with more after this. All right, welcome back. Happy to have Ken Kenelly on our guest segment this week, talking some great memories of his time as a player coach, his dad, which was some incredible stories. Mark Harris Beal joining us now for our talk segment here on all things Lions. Harris, thanks for joining us. So with us tonight, we had Ken on. Mark, the Chicago Bears story is the coolest one to me. That his dad was, forgive me, Mark,
George Hallis came down to sign him. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and a couple of Lions. He came down to try to talk to a couple of Lions, but got on the train in Chicago and took it straight down. The same train ride you can take now from Hammond to Chicago. He got on that, came down here to try to find some players, and that's a cool story. And that's something I didn't know. I didn't know his dad was 6'7".
Well, so. Yeah, I mean, he was a giant, and a giant figuratively and literally. And of course, his name's on the Pat Kenelly Diamond Alumni Field on the baseball field. He was a very successful head baseball coach here in the '60s, and head football coach here from '65 to '71. Also the athletic director, and basically they're Southeastern royalty. And it was an honor for me to have and for us to have Ken on with us tonight. And honestly, some of the stuff he told off the air were very good stories as well. And I know we're going to have him back on. Hopefully, we'll have some more former players from his era and later and even before that, to talk Southeastern football and really just tell the history of this program and talk about things that maybe aren't in the public domain that they can tell. Some of those stories, but there's so much history out there that's just kind of been glossed over and kind of dusted aside, especially with the gap of 18 years that we want to try to bring out as we go with this podcast and just take it where it goes. But such an honor to have Ken on tonight. And again, we'll have him on again in the future.
Well, guys, the Riverville Classic 2023, Hate Nichols Week, whatever you want to call it, is here. And it's been going for now 2 days. Look, Nichols State has already won the Southland Conference. They hoisted the trophy last week at their home stadium in Thibodaux. They're coming here, and maybe I can't think, Mark and Harris, of the last time the Southland has been wrapped up by a team before the final week. I mean, I know it's happened, but I can't think of the last time that's happened. It's been a while. Maybe one of those years when UCA was undefeated, they had wrapped it up at this point. But it's tough to do in this league to get to that point where you can hoist a trophy on your 10th game, week 11.
Well, it's been a while since Southeastern was out of it early in the conference season, and of course, as you said, Nichols had this thing wrapped up last week. When they beat Lamar. So again, it's a different league right now. UIW is down. Obviously we're down. Nichols just kind of got off to a good start, kind of stayed hot, and kind of rode. I think everybody in this league is about the same. Honestly, I mean, maybe not McNeese and Commerce, but I think the other 4 or 5 are very similar in talent. Similar type football teams. Nichols has just kind of stayed steady and has a chance to go undefeated if they can beat us on Thursday night. But Riverville Classic, throughout all the record books, it's going to be a rivalry. It's going to be packed house in Strawberry Stadium. Get your tickets. Bring your umbrellas. It's going to be a fun night.
Yeah, Harris is a guy who played in this rivalry. You won one Riverville, you lost one Riverville. Just talk about this game, what it means to you as a player.
Yeah, I can tell you right now that I have no love for Nichols whatsoever. If there's one school to pull against for the rest of my life, it'd be Nichols. It's a rivalry through and through. I think Alan said a stat on Monday. 33 meetings, and I think it's 17-16 all time.
Yep.
8-8 at home? Was it home? And 7-7, or 8-8?
Yeah,
8-8 at Southeastern, 7-7 at Nichols.
The road team has done really well recently.
So
I think it's 8-8. You had 2 games at the Superdome.
Right.
So,
okay.
The neutral site game, I think they split those. So, but Southeastern leads at 17-16, and again they've won 3 of the last 4. 4 of the last 5 meetings overall. One of the meetings didn't count for River Bell Classic purposes when we played 2 games in 2021. We
Right.
lost the actual River Bell game that was
That's
played
right.
here, but again, this is a rivalry that has kind of ebbed and flowed. And started out Southeastern in the beginning, dominated early. Nicholls State, toward the tail end of Southeastern's, before they dropped football in 1985, Nicholls had won 4 in a row, or 5 in a row, I guess, and then made that 7 in a row or 8 in a row through 20, actually more than that. Yeah, through 2007, Southeastern snapped that streak. It was a 7-game Nicholls winning streak. Southeastern snapped it 2007. Nicholls won 3 more in a row before Southeastern won 4 in a row. Nicholls won 1. Southeastern won 2 in a row. Nicholls won 2 in a row. 2 in a row Southeastern. Nicholls won, and Southeastern last year. So it's kind of going back and forth. And so the leader has gone, like I said, it's ebbed and flowed, but Southeastern leads it with 17 wins and 16 losses.
Mark, you have a little bit bigger sample size than me and Harris, but Harris, start with you. Give me your favorite River Bell Classic game you've been a part of or watched.
Oh, I mean, there's been a lot of classics. Last year becoming conference champions was really cool. First year on the radio, and getting to experience that from that viewpoint from up in the booth, that was pretty awesome. There's been a lot of heartbreaks. The 1 yard line, fumble on the 1 yard line that was tough. As a player, senior year, losing after being up 21-0, I think, at halftime. That stung too. But I would think last year was pretty cool, just from being on the radio and being a fan, and seeing the guys go out and just dominate, and get Coach Selfo's first conference championship, was a pretty neat thing to be a part of.
Mark, go ahead.
Well, several stand out. I would say the 2019 game, as far as atmosphere and Strawberry Stadium, was probably as electric as any River Bell Classic we've seen in terms of fan involvement and just the build up, the hype. It was winner take all. Unfortunately, Southeastern came up short with a fumble at the 1 yard line, going into the end zone at the end of the ball game. But that game lived up to the hype, and in a Southeastern loss, that would probably be the most memorable. The most memorable win for me, a couple of them. One would be 2013 when Southeastern wrapped up their first Southland Conference championship. That was here. It was a big win, 52-27, I believe, here in Strawberry Stadium. But it was just a total annihilation. Southeastern culminated a fantastic regular season, won 10 straight. Eventually won 10 straight when they won the first playoff game the next week. I think that was the 9th win in a row. And so that was a big one. But I got to go back to 2007. Nicholls State had won the first, I think, 3 games coming out of the Southeastern's rebirth of football, and Southeastern under new head coach Mike Lucas. Nicholls State had a chance to go to the playoffs. They came in here, still had a mathematical chance to win the Southland Conference, and Southeastern upset them 17-13. You had Jay Lucas with the big day to break Horace Belton's record, and that game, I think, kind of solidified Southeastern. Even though they didn't have a great year, it just kind of said, okay, here's what's possible in the Southland Conference. Because before that, you got to remember, Southeastern was independent the first couple of years coming back, and really struggled the first 3 years in league play, or 2 years in league play, and finally to get a win over a team that had a chance to win the league, I think solidified this team as a possible Southland Conference champion moving forward. So big win in 2007.
Yeah, a lot of great memories for me. I think the 2019 game was a really special one for me. I know the Lions lost, but just to take in that atmosphere, something I've never seen in that stadium since I've been associated with it, to see that atmosphere, that capacity, just what it meant to both schools. I know the Lions lost that game, but I just left it extremely disappointed, but I left it feeling like, man, what a cool tradition and foundation that has been built between these two schools to even, because
it's a real rivalry.
For all the marbles, you still could have a situation where you only had, 1,000 Nichols fans come up, 4,000 Lion fans. I mean, there was 3,000 Nichols fans there. Lion fans packed it out. It was incredible. And I'll just never forget the pride that I had outside of the final play and the ending, but the pride that I had of what the rivalry had become and what it was. And the 17 game was a good one, to me.
Yep.
Lorenzo gets hurt. Byron Walker comes off the bench. And
Marcus Cooper on no ACL.
Yeah, Marcus Cooper. And that Nichols team was they were coming out here trying to win to get in the play. They ended up getting it anyway at 7-4 that year, but they knew 8-3 was a guarantee. And when they left and lost, they had to bite their fingernails until Sunday afternoon when they got selected and played South Dakota that year in Thibodaux in the first round and lost that one. But that was a special one for me too, just the way the game played out and the adversity of that year. And obviously Ron Roberts' last game after all he had done for the getting the program going and winning those championships, it was a special one too.
I'll give you two more. 2016 was a great game as well, 44-42, I believe. Down in Thibodaux was a Hail Mary at the end of the ball game. I think we were up by a couple of touchdowns. Nichols rallied, got an onside kick, and had a Hail
Juice
Mary.
Marceline had a great game.
Yeah, Juice Marceline had an outstanding game, and Deshae Lander played very well also. And that was a big win. That was the win that I think momentarily we felt like we might get into the playoffs as an at-large, only not to be. Finished 7-4 that year, didn't get in. But that was a great ball game, no question. And then 2021 spring, down in Thibodaux, Lindsey Scott, his first year in Nichols, that was a great ball game. It was 50. What was
That was
it,
a great
50,
ball game.
55, 38 or 48 or whatever the final score was. And
that was a Saturday afternoon, right?
Saturday afternoon, it was Cole Kelly, Lindsey Scott going back and forth. We picked off Lindsey Scott, I think, 4 times in that ball game, and a couple pick sixes by Southeastern.
One that gets forgot about. Yeah, that's one that gets forgot about a little bit because it was a spring, because it was a Saturday.
Yeah, it was a spring game on a Saturday, but nonetheless, it's a River Bell Classic, and it was a classic. Like I said, 55-48.
Yeah.
And, you had that run of games in there where neither team could stop the other. You had 55-48 the next year in Hammond. Well, actually, the two, one in Thibodaux and in Hammond, high-scoring ball games, and then of course you had the game in 2016 as well. So you had a run there where, last team with the football won.
The most forgettable one for me was the 2021. Watching them, we couldn't stop them in the running game.
He's back, Colin Guggenheim.
Yeah, he's back.
He'll play again this Saturday.
What do you have, like 380 yards? I guess.
Had a bunch.
It was unbelievable. I remember going down there in like 2000 and like maybe 10 mark. Jay Thomas was fired before the game. 2009, he was fired. The news broke. I think one of the news stations in New Orleans broke that.
Yeah, that was
before Twitter. Yeah, that was before Twitter and all this instant news. And we had heard that morning, and the Lions were had a great year. They had some injuries, but that was a cool moment. I'm just talking about the moment as a Lion fan. Yeah, but the moment of the rivalry, that was a great moment for Jay. He had really done well at that school as a coach there, and I remember they kind of carried him off the field, so to speak, and won the River Bell for him on that final afternoon. The 2010 game was down in Thibodaux, Mark, and that was just like that was a crazy game.
Fight game at the end where Kevin Hughes got ejected, and the entire Nichols
on the field
bench came on the field. Nobody got ejected for Nichols, and Kevin Hughes did.
Yeah, and Gavin Webster got a
penalty.
Got a penalty coming off the bench, and that was there's been some great moments for me that stand out, but I think that one of the most special moments that I have every other year, and I've gotten a chance to go even last year. I went is that Thursday night evening ride to Thibodaux when the game's in Thibodaux. It's a great drive. It's a beautiful drive in my opinion. Once you get across the river, going down to Thibodaux, and it's just kind of a culmination of the season, and you have that showcase for yourself, and that's I know Ken talked about in the interview segment about maybe bringing the game back to Saturday, and I get all that, and I think he's got a great point there, and I wouldn't be opposed to it, but there's something about that Thursday game. You have so much more attention from that New Orleans media, Baton Rouge media. There's nothing going on, and I think that's a big bonus to this game and why it's become what it's become.
Speak for yourself, Robbie. Driving to Thibodeau, I cannot wait to come back. So, so speak for
always
yourself.
Have the Raising Cane stop on the way
Yeah,
back after.
Yeah, always. You're just driving to Thibodeau and you're like, golly, where are we? And you see that huge Hampton Inn on the right from like miles away.
I've talked to Thibodeau people, and they think the same thing about
Hammond. Oh yeah,
they
it's
think
a true rivalry.
They think Hammond's the dump, just like I think Thibodeau's a dump. No offense to anybody from Thibodeau, but like it goes back and forth. I cannot wait to get out of Thibodeau, just like they cannot wait to get out of Hammond. So it is.
Finish up. No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
No, you're good.
No, I was going to tell you, I got one other interesting tidbit about this rivalry. Back in 2006, Southeastern had a bad year. I think finished 2-9 that year, but middle of the season, the game was in the middle of the year that year. It wasn't at the end like it is now. They thankfully the Southland Conference has put that game at the end as a rivalry game, but back then it was in the middle. And go down to Thibodeau. Nichols had a pretty good ball club. They were the conference champions the year before, went to the playoffs. Had a lot of those guys back. Southeastern still in the middle of the season, felt like they had a chance. Anyway, go to Thibodeau, and it's 10-7, I think, coming out of halftime. Southeastern runs the opening kickoff back for a touchdown. I think the go ups would have been 17-7 at the time. And there was a flag for offsides. And then on the run down the sideline, there's a sideline interference or warning or interference call on Southeastern. So Nicholls State's offsides. Southeastern gets a sideline interference. Well, they get together and they offset the penalties. Well, the penalty is not offsetting. It's a dead ball foul. So it should have been Southeastern declines the offsides, dead ball on the kickoff. Southeastern should have had a touchdown. Well, the officials misinterpreted the rule. And, Southeastern's in the middle of, Coach Rowland's ill at the time. So anyway, they never challenged it. And so Southeastern gets a touchdown taken off the board, don't score. Nichols ends up scoring a touchdown, wins 14-10. And that's a game that sticks out in my mind because, we should have had a touchdown and didn't get it. So that's just another.
You told me the for a long time, Mark.
Yeah, it's another quirk in the rivalry.
Was Ed Bourgeois the referee?
Ed Bourgeois was not the referee. I think it was Marvell July, if I'm not mistaken. But
is Ed Bourgeois going to be the referee Thursday night?
Yes,
I would imagine he will, Harris.
Yes, he is. Yeah, I don't know. I got to stick up for the area. I know you don't like it, Harris. My favorite golf course on earth is in Homa, and so I love going to Ellendale as often as I can.
That's a good course.
Yeah, so I guess I like.
Personally, I like Thibodeau. I mean, it's it's a little different. It's kind of out of the way a little bit, but I like going there. I like going to Thibodeau.
Mark, what year did Southeastern play Thibodeau where they had the implosion of that building on campus and it failed?
Wait, what now?
There was a football game. It was a Saturday game, and Thibodeau was Nichols was destroying an old building on campus, like an old dorm room, and they blew it up.
It had to be 2008 because I think that's the only time we played on Saturday in Thibodeau.
Because they didn't have lights. And they detonated the building and it failed. And so it was just leaning. I just remember going. I was like in high school. My mom and I went.
Had to be 2008.
Yeah, 2008. That's when half the team got suspended.
That was a suspension game. Yeah, where half the team was suspended and Southeastern fell behind. It fell behind by, I don't know, it was 28-0 or whatever it was, and lost 35-28, I think.
Yeah, that 2008 sounds right because I remember Brent Blazevich and maybe Josh Taylor.
We went down there on the Saturday. I know you couldn't go, Mark, because you were in Jupiter that weekend, but they played it. They played us in 2021. The first time we played them in that fall game.
That's right. Yeah, that was.
It was Saturday. It was a noon kickoff, and Alan said, "Meet me at my house at at like 7:30. So I met Alan at 7:30, and we drove down to Thibodaux, and we got there around 9:30ish or something, and the game kicked off at noon, and that was a very weird situation to be there. I know we were there in the spring game, which was during the day, but to be there at noon, it was just so bizarre. And it was early October, and it was like 100 degrees. It was a wild game. It was a good game though. I mean, we kind of controlled it. I think Lindsey Scott threw some picks that game too, but that wasn't a River Bell Classic. But that was just a weird game, all in all. It just a weird set. But,
another high scoring game in the series. And it seems like the winner has scored 40 plus the last, I don't know how many times, how many times in a row. So it's definitely been a high scoring series.
Interested to see if that'll happen this week. Obviously, the Lions beat Commerce this past Saturday. I know, Harris, you had the flu, but glad to see you're back and healthy. You'll be there this week with us as well, Alan. This team, I think that if you win the last four, there's a glasses half full, glasses half empty kind of approach. You can say glasses half empty. You can say, why did this team play like this all year? And we'd still be playing probably next weekend. And then the glasses half full to say, look, this team full of a lot of older guys who are on their way out, could have shut this thing down, threw in the towel, and said, look, we're 0-7. We've lost a lot of close games. We've had a lot of adversity. We're just going to mail it in. And who cares what happens down the stretch? That's the glasses half full mentality, to say they kept fighting, and they're going to, if they win Thursday, will finish 4-7 and winning their last four, springboard the coaches and the players into the offseason. I think that's the two ways to look at it. In my book, you got to look at the resilience of the team and the players to keep fighting and having a chance to finish with a winning record in the league, because they'll be 4-3 in conference play, and 4-7 overall. I think it's a testament to the coaches and the players.
Well, when we take that, Robbie, obviously, anytime you get a team that's got buy-in for 12 weeks, with an open date, you play 11 games, you have 12 weeks, and you've got total buy-in. You're in every football game. You had a chance to win four or five games you didn't win, but you're in every football game. And that speaks to the coaching staff. I mean, the coaching staff has to have buy-in from the players, which they did. And I thought Saturday at Commerce was probably, the most complete game Southeastern's played this year on both sides of the football. Now, Commerce is not a good football team right now, and they played a true freshman quarterback who really struggled. But, Southeastern dominated both lines of scrimmage. This is a Commerce team that has been competitive most weeks. Almost beat Old Dominion, played Nicholls State fairly well, played Lamar fairly tough, played UIW fairly tough. I mean, they have been competitive.
40-something on Nice.
Scored 41 on McNeese, correct. So, you don't just go in there and win 52-14 and dominate. And it could have been a lot worse. Southeast, Frank Selfo pulled the dogs off, and the second, third, and fourth quarter, and basically just put it on cruise control the rest of the way. And they could have named the score, and it had 4 or 5 touchdowns called back. I ended up scoring on a couple of them, but had several penalties to take points off the board. You miss a field goal, and so it could have been a lot worse. And then Commerce scored a couple of touchdowns, but Southeastern defensively was lights out. Had 7 sacks, dominated the run game, rushed the quarterback, covered well in the back end. I mean, it was just a complete football game. So they're playing their best football late, and that's what you hope to see. Unfortunately, it's not going to mean anything as far as playoffs, but if you can beat Nicholls and beat the conference champion, that's a feather in your cap.
Yeah, I think ending the year beating the conference champion Nicholls will be kind of icing on the cake for this season. It's been a season filled with adversity, from a turnover issue to identity at quarterback. You name it, Southeastern's dealt with it. But I think the last 3 weeks, they've kind of found themselves, limited the turnovers, played smart, played well, limited penalties. And I think beating Nicholls on Thursday night will be a good thing moving forward into the off season. Also, at the same time, kind of deflating, because you wish you could go back and you wish you would have taking care of business in some of these games early on. You have 4 losses, one possession games, one score games. So that definitely stings, hurts the mental morale. But moving forward into the off season, you have a chance to go undefeated against Louisiana Southland teams, which is huge for recruiting. And then you have a chance to just build on 4 wins in a row for 2024 football season.
Mark, if you'd have told me when you and I left Thibodeau in 2010 that we'd be sitting here in 2023, just so shocked that we didn't make the playoffs for a 4th straight year, I probably would tell you that you didn't know what you were talking about. So it just shows how far we've came. And,
Yeah,
it's impressive of what this program's become, and that's great. That's what it's all about. And it's been a tough year, but they're going to build on it for next year, I think. Harris, Duke's going to be out there this Thursday night.
Well, tailgating doesn't start till 4 o'clock, and that's something that I think in the future should be changed for policy with Southeastern tailgating rules. So maybe not next year since it'll be an away game, but the year after, I think tailgating should start at 12 o'clock. I think music should be blaring. I think students should be excited for the game. At 4 o'clock, there's no excitement. I think the excitement should start in the morning. I think that students should have the choice to maybe skip class if they want to, and tailgate and take that energy from Friendship Circle to the classroom, back to Friendship Circle, and then into Strawberry Stadium. The Dukes will have the trailer out at 4 o'clock on the dot, just music, and then the Dukes will have the trailer at the University Center for Friday as the women take on LSU. So back to back days for the Dukes doing stuff for Southeastern athletics.
Better get your sleep.
should be a good segue, Robbie, into hoops real quick.
Yeah, we'll hit hoops real quick. Lions men's basketball plays BYU. When you're watching this broadcast, we're playing them today on Wednesday. Played Auburn over the weekend. I thought they played really well at times and held their own against a good Auburn team. Got their first win against Delta State. We talked to Coach Kiefer about that last week. I thought he was great, by the way. Women got a big win to open the year against Millsaps and played Mississippi State tough.
And then won tonight.
And then
won
won tonight
by 60, yeah.
Which was Tuesday against Suno. So that's fantastic. Coach Ayla's got the team rolling, and probably the most high-profile situation in the University Center on a men or women's basketball situation or schedule in. I can't think of a time.
Forever.
I know they've come in before. I know they've ranked highly before, but this is just the aura around this team. I mean, they have. I guess it's the way college athletics is, but they have full on celebrities that travel with this team. Obviously, Kim's a celebrity in her own right, but the LSU players they're so out there. They've presented themselves so well for their university since they won the national championship. They're going to be playing in the University Center, and it's sold out. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean it harkens back to the 1970s. I know we touched on this a couple of weeks ago on the pod, but back in the 70s, LSU and Southeastern had a rivalry that was really strong. Back then, the entire state played each other. He had a state championship. Southeastern won the state championship, I think, the first 3 or 4 years that they had one, and had beaten LSU like 8 times in a row. And finally, in 1978, LSU came here. LSU was ranked number 1, and you had a sold-out Cephalou Coliseum. It was jam-packed, over 3,000 people, standing room only, going after it, and it ended up being a 1-point LSU win. So this kind of harkens back to that game. Although if you would have told me now, I don't think anybody's surprised that LSU's women's basketball with Kim Mulkey, can sell out the University Center. It's just the fact that it happened so quickly, and it's a hard sellout. I think there's 500 student tickets available, and I think those are going to go quick. But I think at least 7,000 tickets were sold to the public, and I expect that place to be jammed. And it's the first time ever that the UC has been sold out for a Southeastern athletic event. And I go back to 1982 or 3. Murray State came in here. Rice played here in men's, and there was like 4,000. That's probably the most I can ever remember for a basketball game in the UC that wasn't a high school championship game.
Yeah, I was
So
about to say, Mark, the most I ever witnessed was Simona Augustus
yeah.
in high school.
And if you were here for that, I wasn't. But if you were here for that, you're probably going to have a similar atmosphere. And who knows? I mean, hopefully the majority of those are Southeastern fans. I know LSU is going to probably pack their fans in here, and they're expected to win. They're ranked number 1, but hopefully Southeastern can give a very good effort and a representative showing for themselves, similar to last year over at the PMAC when they lost by 8. If they can play like that, I think it bodes well for Ayla Gazzardo's team. And I know they're off to a good start. Played Mississippi State close. Mississippi State is ranked 25th in the country. That was a 1-point game at halftime. Kind of got away from them in the second half. I think it was a 20-point loss. But this is a Southeastern basketball team, the women's basketball team that looks improved. And then David Kiefer's team, they go to Auburn and fell behind early, trailed by as much as 17 in the game, but never got away from them. They got it to 7 late. And really looked good. I thought at times pushed the basketball up the floor against a very athletic Auburn team, and showed that they're going to be a force in the Southland Conference. Obviously got some things to clean up, and got a tough one, Wednesday night against BYU. But I think both basketball programs are in good shape right now.
And the Southland, what a big night for them in basketball. First couple of nights with McNeese speaking. Yeah, Nichols and McNeese with upset wins. Nichols beats LSU. So good basketball in the Southland for Lion fans to come out and check out this winter and spring. And I hope the Lions are standing on top of the podium at the end of the year with a championship. So we'll see what happens. But very impressive opening week, guys. I want to thank Ken Kenelly for being a special guest this week. Thank Harris and Mark as always. And we'll see you next week. Hopefully the Lions are 4-7, talking River Bell wrap-up and football season wrap-up. Another special guest next week, and we'll dive into the winter sports coming up really quickly.
And we will have a women's preview coming up, so just stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned for that. All right, for Harris Beal, Mark Willoughby, I'm Robbie Rhodes saying goodnight. Line up. This has been the Southeast Sports Network podcast. We'll see you next week, guys.
Peace.
All right.
Line up.
Line up.